Discover the inspiring moment a little girl revealed her pain in incredible millionaire surprise that changed everything. It was just another night at the diner, the sizzling grill mixing with the chatter of regulars. Sarah moved efficiently, serving pancakes and burgers as she always did, but tonight felt heavier. She caught sight of Lily, sitting in the corner, stirring her chocolate milk, her tiny figure lost among the bustle, the epitome of feeling invisible. Just hours earlier, she'd scrubbed the floor of the Richter's home, battling her fatigue and self-doubt as she wondered if her 2 jobs were enough to keep them afloat. The persistent weight of mounting bills pushed her to the edge, an inner scream muffled by politeness. Lily wasn't just hungry for food, she craved connection, acceptance, and understanding. At school, they pointed out her hand-me-downs, and while she tried to brush off the hurt, it gnawed at her spirit. "Why can't we be like them? Why can't I fit in?" she'd whispered once, just between them. That night, Sarah noticed a flicker of anguish behind her daughter's large, expressive eyes. It was crushing. She wanted to shield Lily from all the pain, but now it felt like a storm breaching the walls, eager to drown them both. "You choose to rise," Sarah thought to herself, blinking back her own tears. The whispers at the diner turned decidedly sharper with the town's news about Ted. Rumors swirled around the wealthy newcomer who wanted to inject his money into local ventures, but for Sarah, it was another reminder of their division. How could someone like Ted, with his sprawling mansion and suit, understand their struggle? The chatter fell silent as Sarah overheard folks dissecting his past, drawn as they were to his complicated life. They were fixated on skepticism. Had wealth really changed him? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the evening wore on, battling fatigue and the mounting pressure of expectations, Sarah watched Lily crumble. "I just want to be good enough," the girl sobbed, tears spilling over like a dam that burst. It was overwhelming for both of them, the damning weight of feeling less than, invisible amongst the glittering lives around them. Sarah's heart twisted painfully, wishing for more than this life, for both of them. The guilt swelled. Had she failed to build a fortress strong enough to protect her daughter? This moment became an unbearable crucible of despair and hope, teetering precariously as she confronted the prospect of change. Ted's looming influence ticked like a clock in her mind. Would he see Lily's pain? Would they accept help from someone so far removed from their reality? And yet, Sarah's spirit flickered to life. Could she pay the price of vulnerability in exchange for a brighter future? The choices ahead twisted violently in her gut as a potential spark of hope hovered, illuminating the shadows in their lives. Would she dare to step into the pain and possibility held within that door labeled opportunity? As the diner buzzed with unfounded gossip, Sarah felt her heart echo with fear and longing. For a brief moment, she saw a path forward, but the question loomed ominously: could embracing this change unite them, or would it only widen the chasms they fought to escape? The weight of the evening lingered in the air as Sarah returned home, her mind racing with a whirlwind of exhaustion and determination. She leaned against the doorframe, watching Lily in her room, framed by the flickering light of a bedside lamp. It was a confrontation with their shared reality, a stark divide between what they had and what they desired. Overwhelmed by despair earlier, Sarah now felt a primal instinct stirring within her, a need to protect, to fight for a better life. If Ted was truly interested in helping, perhaps it was time to confront those prejudices she held. The thought made her stomach churn with unease. She could almost hear her mother's voice warning her about people who spoke too sweetly. Still, the prospect of change whispered enticingly in her mind, like a siren song pulling her closer. What am I afraid of? She questioned silently. Would opening up to someone wealthy only expose them to further ridicule, or could it be the lifeline they desperately needed? Residing in an echo chamber of doubt was easy, battling it alone was not. The idea of a partnership, even with someone as different from her as Ted, felt both appealing and frightening. The next day, as she prepared for work at the diner, notions of assertiveness wove into her routine. With each interaction, Sarah pulled on a new layer of confidence, determined to challenge the preconceived beliefs she harbored about the wealthy. Maybe, just maybe, there was a possibility of forging a connection with Ted that could transcend their social divides. While pouring coffee for regulars, she overheard snippets of Ted's success stories. The way he was reinventing community spaces and supporting local artists sparked something within her. She felt a wave of determination wash over her. If he was willing to invest in the town's future, perhaps he could also invest in her own. When she spotted Ted at the diner later that week, a tall figure in a well-tailored suit surveying the room, her heart raced. Should she approach him? The thought of initiating a conversation brought on a fresh wave of anxiety. Yet she couldn't shake the vision of Lily's downtrodden face from her mind. Life is too short to play small, she whispered under her breath, bravely tightening her grip on the coffee pot. With each step toward his table, doubts lurked like shadows. What if he rejected her? What if he was just another self-absorbed millionaire? Yet the desire for change eclipsed her fears. She remembered Lily's tears and the burden they both carried. "Excuse me, Ted," she said, her voice steady despite the rapid beating of her heart. He looked up, genuine curiosity lighting his eyes. The moment stretched, heavy with the weight of what she carried. "I would like to talk to you about how you plan to help the community," she continued, the words echoing with newfound resolve. "Sometimes it feels like those of us struggling have been forgotten." The earnestness of her request hung in the air as he regarded her, eyebrows raised, the tension palpable. They were two worlds colliding, an intersection of desperation and opportunity. "Of course," he replied, a glimmer of respect forming in his expression. "I'd love to hear more." As they settled into conversation, Sarah felt a flicker of hope igniting amidst the uncertainty. For the first time in a long while, the image of a path unfurling before her began to crystallize in her mind, but could she hold on to it? Would she be willing to risk vulnerability for the sake of progress? The connection between them grew, but dark shadows loomed. Would this newfound alliance prove to be the bridge she needed, or would it expose the fractures still buried deep within? The realization crashed over her that while she could open the door to opportunity, she still had to navigate the realms of her own emerging dreams and fears. Now, with the weight of her aspirations laden upon her shoulders, she had no choice but to step into the unknown. What awaited them on this uncertain journey? Would their shared vulnerability lead to healing or expose their deepest insecurities? Sarah's thoughts spun as she listened to Ted speak. His passion for revitalizing the once vibrant neighborhood around them was infectious. With each word, he painted a picture of hope, a canvas filled with bold colors of dreams yet to be realized. In those moments, he wasn't just a wealthy stranger, he was a catalyst for change. As Ted shared his vision of an arts initiative aimed at drawing resources back into underserved areas, Sarah's apprehensions slowly unraveled. This was the chance she had long desired, the spark that could ignite not just her dreams, but also those of others like her. Yet, as excitement bubbled within her, a sobering thought emerged. If this partnership unfolded, how would she confront her vulnerability? Would she still carry the weight of her own past, dark and heavy, into this freshly minted collaboration? A question hung in the back of her mind. Was she ready to let Ted see her for who she truly was? The fear settled in her chest like a stone. Her insecurities skittered in the corners of her mind, whispering doubts that clawed at her resolve. "What do you envision from those you hope to help?" she queried, attempting to mask her inner turmoil. It was a calculated move, an effort to deflect from her own chaos while gleaning insight into his motives. Ted paused, contemplating her question. "I want to empower people," he replied, his face serious. "I want to give them tools, not just handouts. It's about collaboration." His sincerity hit her. This wasn't merely a philanthropic endeavor. It was a genuine call for partnership. The thought sent her heart racing again, but with newfound clarity. Sarah knew she needed to be an active participant in her own destiny, not just a passive recipient. As the conversation unfolded, she discovered various facets about herself, traits she had buried under the weight of cynicism. She articulated her own dreams for her community, pieces of herself that she had usually kept locked away. Her voice grew stronger as she proposed incremental ideas for engaging fellow residents, illustrating a vision that was uniquely hers. "I'd love to organize workshops for kids in the neighborhood," she proposed, feeling her confidence bloom. "They need creative outlets. In art, they can express what they're feeling and dream of brighter futures." Ted's eyes sparkled with interest. "That's brilliant. Let us make it happen." It was a simple acknowledgement, but it ignited a thrill within her, a confirmation of her capability, like a flickering flame turned into a steady blaze. Yet, even amidst this exhilarating exchange, the shadows of her insecurities loomed larger. Would her efforts truly make a difference? Each time she stood between the possibility of a rich collaboration and the confines of her fears, she felt a tremor of uncertainty. Sarah's interactions with her coworkers became a mirror reflecting newfound assertiveness. She began advocating for herself in ways she had never attempted before. Each word she shared transformed into a small act of defiance against her old narrative. Conversations revolving around community challenges became opportunities for her to voice her thoughts without retreating into silence. But the clock was ticking. Her ambitions collided with the growing pressure to take the next step, and the excitement coated a bitter undercurrent of anxiety. As they dove deeper into discussions about implementing her ideas, it became increasingly clear she'd have to finally confront her past to step into her future. The thought sent a shudder through her, but stifling it felt like a betrayal of her budding alliance with Ted. As the final minutes of their meeting approached, she felt a stirring desire to commit fully, not just to the project, but to herself. "Let us schedule some time to brainstorm specifics," Ted suggested, breaking through her thoughts. "There's potential here, Sarah. We can create something remarkable." As they exchanged numbers, Sarah couldn't shake the sense of impending transformation. The challenges ahead loomed like dark clouds, but the storm of her insecurities could either break her or propel her forward. What awaited her beyond this crossroads, the commitment to vulnerability or the retreat into safety? The risk had never felt more palpable, and she was about to find out just how far she was willing to go. As she walked away from the diner, a new wave of uncertainty settled in. The moment of truth approached. Could she embrace the opportunities before her, or would her fears stifle her evolution once again? Sarah spent the next few days in a whirlwind of preparation, her mind a chaotic blend of excitement and dread. The idea of organizing the workshops consumed her thoughts, each moment oscillating between the thrill of creative promise and the haunting specter of self-doubt. Ted's enthusiasm had breathed life into her aspirations, but was she truly equipped to lead this initiative? As she explored potential themes for the workshops, images of her own childhood flooded back to her. Memories rushed like water, the frustration of feeling unheard, the longing for a safe space to express herself. Torn between nostalgia and a renewed purpose, she sat at her kitchen table, mixing vibrant colors onto a palette, the familiar scent of paint grounding her amidst uncertainty. She reached for her phone and typed out a message to Ted, seeking a brief meeting to discuss ideas more concretely. The desire to articulate her vision had become urgent. Articulating it would validate her journey thus far. But after hitting send, she was immediately struck by a wave of apprehension. What if he realized she wasn't capable of executing even the most basic plans? What if he saw through her confident demeanor, exposing her myriad vulnerabilities? The thought made her stomach churn. Later that evening, she sat on her couch, restless, as shadows danced across the walls from the flickering television. A documentary on famous artists interspersed facts about their achievements with snippets of their struggles, their failures laid bare. For every stroke of brilliance, there seemed to linger a chain of doubt that had nearly strangled their aspirations. It struck her every artist encounters roadblocks, but the difference lay in pushing through. Inspired, Sarah grabbed her sketchbook and thumbed through pages filled with half-finished drawings and ideas, fragments of a story still waiting to be told. She paused on a sketch of a little girl standing in a field of dandelions, eyes wide with dreams. Her lips curled into a smile, She understood that this girl embodied her essence. In that moment, she recognized the unintentional message encased within her art. It was about resilience and hope in the face of adversity. With renewed energy, Sarah made a plan for her next meeting with Ted. She would not only introduce ideas for the workshop curriculum but also speak about the profound personal significance it held for her. This revelation felt like the first crack in her defenses. Vulnerability was not a weakness but an avenue toward connection and collaboration. Days passed, perilously quickly. When the meeting finally arrived, the cafe where they had first met buzzed with familiar faces and energy. As she spotted Ted across the room, engaged in conversation, a knot tightened in her stomach. But she steadied her breathing and reminded herself of the little girl who hadn't let her past silence her dreams. "Hey, you made it!" Ted exclaimed, his face lighting up when he saw her. Almost instantly, the tension in her chest began to ease. The warmth of his presence rekindled her courage. "Thanks for meeting with me," she said, her voice steady as she took a seat across from him. "I've been thinking a lot about the workshops. I want to create something meaningful not just for the kids, but for myself too." Ted leaned forward, interest piqued. "I'm all ears. What do you have in mind?" Sarah forged ahead, diving into her ideas for interactive sessions that would encourage self-expression through various mediums. And for the first time, she spoke candidly about her childhood experiences, weaving her narrative into her aspirations. As she unraveled her heart, she became aware of how her past held the keys to her future. The potential impact of the workshops surged from a personal vision to a shared mission illuminated by the possibilities of genuine connection. Yet as Ted nodded, endorsing her passion, a shadow of doubt flickered at the back of her mind. Would revealing her truth risk everything? The stakes were rising, and she was now standing on the precipice of her greatest challenge. Could she truly embrace this vulnerability she had only just begun to understand, or would it thrust her back into the shadows of her past? The moment lingered, heavy with the weight of what was to come, a decision that could redefine not only her future with Ted but her relationship with herself. As they began to outline the next steps for the workshops, Sarah felt the exhilaration of potential coalesce with the fear of failure. The time had come to face her demons, but could she summon the courage to venture deeper? Sarah left the cafe with a rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Each step felt like a dance towards a dream that had begun to take shape with Ted's encouragement. But as she stepped onto the busy street, that familiar knot of doubt twisted in her stomach again. What if the workshop ideas weren't good enough? What if she was setting herself up for failure? With those thoughts gnawing at her, she made her way home, clutching her sketchbook to her chest. The vibrant colors she had played with earlier flickered in her mind, a juxtaposition of hope against the haunting echo of insecurities. Dismissing her fears, she opened to that sketch of the little girl among dandelions, allowing herself a moment to breathe deeply. This girl was a symbol of her own resilience, an embodiment of dreams nurtured against all odds. That evening, she made a choice. After dinner, just before dusk, Sarah set up her easel in the backyard. The fading light cast a golden glow over everything, a soft reminder of the possibilities that lay ahead. With each brushstroke, she began to capture that little girl again, infusing every detail with the weight of her fears and hopes. The act was cathartic, a dialogue between her past and her present, and each stroke released a little more of her pent-up anxiety. As she painted, images of her childhood surfaced, the laughter when she finally expressed herself through art, the weight of silence when her opinions were ignored, the fierce determination that emerged in the wake of relentless doubt. She had always used art as a means of expression, a powerful tool to circumvent the barriers of her internal struggles. The following day, Sarah met Ted again, fueled by the clarity that emerged during her night of creation. She arrived early at the cafe, preparing notes and sketches to visualize her ideas clearly. Ted arrived punctually, coffee in hand, and the warmth in his eyes pushed away the shadows lurking in her mind. "Ready to dive deeper?" he asked, sliding into the booth. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied, with a newfound confidence. Unfurling her sketches, she presented her ideas in vibrant detail, framing the workshops around themes of resilience, creativity, and personal storytelling. Ted listened intently, nodding as she spoke, and for the first time, Sarah felt energized rather than anxious. "Can you think about partnering with someone who can help with logistics and outreach?" he suggested, excitement sparking in his voice. "Not everyone knows how to present their ideas, but what you're doing here is huge. You can make this real." That single suggestion pulled a breath from her lungs. How could she have overlooked the power of collaboration? The cold dread of isolation settled in her mind. What if sharing control was the key to her growth? The thought propelled her toward a new path, one that could redefine the boundaries she had imposed on herself. After the meeting, Sarah returned home with a sense of purpose, eager to identify potential partners for the workshops. Connections began to bloom around her like spring flowers. A local artist she admired, a community leader whose work she respected, maybe even school counselors who understood the importance of creativity in emotional healing. Yet the familiar voice of doubt surged back. Would they accept her? Was she in over her head? As these questions tore at her, Sarah found her sketchbook again and began drafting a plan, a list of names, ideas, and tentative outreach strategies. This act of planning, combined with the vulnerability she had embraced during her meetings, fortified her belief in her vision. But even with all this new clarity, a nagging worry remained. What if the moment she reached out for help exposed her weaknesses instead of amplifying her strengths? Despite the tumult of emotions, the time had come to venture beyond her comfort zone, to risk the revelation of her insecurities while exploring new avenues for growth. As she prepared for her first outreach calls, she wondered if the coming days would reveal newfound confidence or shatter her aspirations. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with colors reminiscent of her art, Sarah took a deep breath. It was time to step forward in her journey, one call, one connection at a time. But as she reached for her phone to make that first call, an unexpected message notification lit up the screen. A name she hadn't anticipated appeared, igniting another wave of anxiety within her. Would this person help her, or would their response hold the potential to unravel the progress she had begun to make? The jolt of recognition from the message on her phone struck Sarah like a lightning bolt. The sender's name was familiar, yet it stirred a mix of anticipation and dread in the pit of her stomach. It was Laura, a childhood friend who had always been an anchor in her life, yet also someone who had witnessed her struggles. They hadn't spoken in months. The distance between them felt like an unspoken agreement to avoid the weight of Sarah's insecurities. Taking a steadying breath, Sarah opened the message. "Hey, I heard you're working on something exciting. I'd love to catch up." The simplicity of the invitation felt overwhelming. A part of her craved the familiarity, the ease that came with their friendship, while another part recoiled, apprehensive about exposing her current ambitions. Could she bear the burden of explaining her dreams, her desire to lead workshops? Would Laura see her unfamiliar confidence as a facade? Instead of dwelling, Sarah opted to respond quickly, eager to keep the momentum she had been building. "Let us meet. I'd love to share." As she hit send, a flutter of anxiety coiled within her again. Now confronted with a decision, would she share the full extent of her dreams with Laura? The thought of navigating their reunion mingled with the excitement of the potential guidance and support that a close friend could offer. Yet an insidious worry crept in. Had she made too big a leap? The next day, Sarah sat across from Laura at their favorite cafe, her sketchbook perched on the table. The warmth of the sun filtered through the windows, but her hands felt clammy as she struggled to muster the right words. Laura's eyes sparkled with genuine curiosity and warmth as she asked about Sarah's recent endeavors. "Tell me everything, Sarah. I always knew you'd do something incredible with your art," Laura said, her enthusiasm relentless. As the words tumbled out, Sarah unveiled her vision for the workshops, how they would encourage others to tap into their creativity as a means of healing. Talk of resilience bubbled up from her. She could feel the spark of excitement igniting in her own heart as she spoke. But then she hesitated, glancing at Laura with uncertainty. "I keep wondering if I might fail," she admitted, the vulnerability of her tone cutting through the confidence she had tried to project. "What if people don't believe in me because I'm just me?" Laura's expression shifted, and in that moment, Sarah realized her friend was not just listening but genuinely engaged. "Sarah, who you are is enough. You have such a unique perspective. Your fears just mean you care," Laura countered, her encouragement as steady as the coffee in front of them. In that instant, something shifted within Sarah, a revelation against the backdrop of her doubts. Perhaps this moment showcased her first step toward embracing the support she needed. There was strength in acknowledging vulnerability, and she had just begun to wield it as a tool rather than a weakness. Yet the conversation with Laura took a different turn. She began to share her own experiences dealing with doubt in her career, illustrating the challenges she faced as she navigated her own aspirations. Listening to another's narrative of struggle felt grounding, and it sparked an idea in Sarah: this could be an opportunity to incorporate shared stories into her workshops. That small realization brought her joy, and as their conversation deepened, Sarah could feel her resilience building. Each anecdote from Laura resonated deeply, acting as a mirror reflecting Sarah's own fears. As their conversation flowed, Sarah knew she had embarked on something bigger than herself. The idea of collaboration expanded, and she felt a desire to explore partnerships not just for logistics, but for emotional and creative synergy. But just as she was beginning to feel that the path ahead was illuminated, Laura's phone buzzed with a notification, pulling her attention momentarily. "Sorry, it's work," she said, glancing down at the screen. As Sarah watched her friend's face shift from curiosity to concern, she felt the unease return. What if the connection they shared began to fray under the weight of reality? The conversation could shift at any moment, and uncertainty edged in again. As their discussion resumed, the thrill of creation mingled with the lurking fear of abandonment. Sarah realized that accepting support didn't guarantee avoidance of pain. It had the potential to lead to even more raw, honest connections. Still, she couldn't shake the worry that surfaced. Was she ready to delve deeper into these new relationships, or would fear drive her back into isolation? As they parted ways, Sarah's mind buzzed with new ideas and insights. Yet her heart raced with questions. How could she continue to strengthen her resolve without unraveling her fragile sense of purpose? Would she truly let herself be guided by others, or would fear of failure pull her back? With her sketchbook clutched tightly against her chest, she walked toward home, the path ahead uncertain yet filled with the promise of growth. The pivotal choice loomed large: to continue reaching out, weaving her aspirations with that of others, or to hold back, fearing what might be lost in the process. As she entered her studio, the glow of evening light flooded the space. A new message dinged on her phone, yet this time it wasn't Laura. A different name, the one that could change everything. With trembling fingers, she opened the message and her breath caught. Would this message open a door or lead to deeper doubts? Sarah's heart raced as she read the name on the screen: Mark. A former art mentor who had taken an interest in her during a community exhibition years ago. Their relationship had faded when Sarah struggled to keep up with the demands of her evolving artistic vision. Yet something in Mark's words felt like an invitation to rekindle that connection, to perhaps seek validation in a time when her confidence was still fragile. The message read: "Hey Sarah, I saw a recent post about your workshop idea. I'd love to hear more and see how I can support your vision. Let us connect." The gravity of his message enchanted and terrified her. This was not merely a casual invitation, it was a potential lifeline. Could he offer opportunities? Would he boost her credibility in the art world? Yet lurking beneath the excitement was a wave of doubt. Did she even deserve this chance? The what-ifs flooded her mind, each one more potent than the last. Determined not to let fear dictate her response, she typed back quickly, a sense of urgency igniting her fingers. "Thanks for reaching out. I'd love to chat and share my ideas. What if this conversation could be transformative?" The prospect of mentoring was both exhilarating and intimidating. The lingering question remained: could she bring her authentic self into this exchange, or would she revert to the timid artist suffocating beneath layers of expectation? The next day, as the sun dipped low, casting a golden hue across her studio, Sarah prepared herself for the call. She glanced around, capturing moments of her surroundings. These vibrant colors and drafts of ideas reminded her of why she wanted to lead workshops in the first place. Art was sacred, a vessel for stories, emotions, and healing. When the phone rang, there was an almost electric thrill in the air. Mark greeted her warmly, his enthusiasm palpable. "Sarah, it's great to connect again. Your passion shines through your posts. I can sense your evolution as an artist. Tell me everything." As she described her vision, Sarah fought against a rising tide of self-doubt. Each word felt woven from threads of her past struggles, fears, and the glimmers of hope that had emerged since reconnecting with Laura. She spoke about weaving shared experiences into the workshops, emphasizing the collective journey of creativity and healing. Yet, as she elaborated on her plans, Mark seemed to shift. The openness in his voice faded into something measured. "It's a great idea, Sarah. But remember, diving into this market requires more than just good intentions. You have to ensure your curriculum resonates with your audience. That's how you can truly impact lives," he warned, his tone professional yet cautious. Sarah felt her heart sink. It was as if a part of her colorful vision faded into the grayscale of reality. What if she wasn't enough? Despite her intentions, would her aspirations appear naive to someone like him? "Absolutely, I understand," she replied, forcing herself to maintain a steady tone, even as her vulnerabilities threatened to surface. "I want to ensure the workshops are meaningful. Authenticity is key to me." The conversation veered towards logistics and proficiency, as Mark discussed marketing strategies and potential collaborations. If he only knew how daunting the realities felt for her, a world plagued with pressures. To simultaneously create and project an image of success felt daunting. But as he painted the picture of her needs, building a brand, establishing credibility, she began to recognize a glimmer of resolve within herself. This was an opportunity to not just launch a program but to construct something profound that could resonate beyond her fears. She could advocate for connection through vulnerability. As they wrapped up, Sarah felt both exhilarated and overwhelmed. Mark had not just ignited her enthusiasm, he had introduced her to the critical conversation about her craft's impact. This was her moment to begin crafting a tangible framework while weaving her story into it. As she hung up, her thoughts swirled. She needed to optimize her workshop plan, but how? Was she ready to embrace accountability and the professional standards Mark emphasized? Striving to stand firmly on the ground of her own aspirations, she questioned, "What if I fail in this? What if I can't meet my own expectations?" The glow of her studio seemed to dim under the weight of those thoughts, yet an inkling of determination rose within her. The workshop held the potential to become a living, breathing entity, a blend of her artistry and the experiences shared with others. Suddenly, her phone chimed again, and she turned her attention back to the screen. It was a message from Laura saying, "I've been thinking about your ideas. A collaboration could be amazing." A rush of adrenaline flooded Sarah, and with it, clarity washed over her. Could this be the start of something that combined her dreams with practical support? Taking a deep breath, Sarah began drafting her response, ready to embrace this new chapter. Yet, the question loomed larger than before. Was she prepared to step fully into the light, allowing her true self to be seen and heard in the world she was creating? Sitting in her studio, Sarah felt an unease settling in her gut. The exchange with Mark had sparked something within her, illuminating the path ahead, yet the shadows of self-doubt lingered like morning fog. Her mind swirled with strategies, marketing plans, curriculum designs, but the fear of inadequacy gnawed at her resolve. The message from Laura was a beacon of hope, a potential partnership that could elevate her vision. Collaborating with Laura could breathe life into her workshop in ways she had only dreamed of. Sarah's fingers hovered over the keyboard as she contemplated her next steps. How could she articulate her vision to capture Laura's imagination? She took a deep breath. "Laura, I'm thrilled you want to discuss collaboration. I envision workshops where storytelling meets creativity, offering participants a space to explore their emotions through art. Could we brainstorm how to weave our ideas together?" With a click, she sent the message, releasing the tension that had coiled in her chest. But with that action came the rush of vulnerability, a risk that her vision might not align with Laura's. What if her dreams seemed too ambitious or disconnected from the market's reality? As she awaited Laura's response, Sarah immersed herself in her art, using the physical motion of painting to channel her swirling thoughts. She dabbed colors on the canvas with a fervor that reflected her inner turmoil, each stroke an expression of hope and uncertainty. Moments later, her phone chimed. Laura's response was enthusiastic, filled with ideas about integrating their artistic philosophies. "I love the concept. Let us meet this week to brainstorm. I believe we can create something incredibly impactful together." The excitement was intoxicating, igniting a flicker of confidence within her. The collaboration felt like the perfect blend of her vision and Laura's expertise. Yet, a new wave of anxiety washed over Sarah. Would they really click? Would she be able to match Laura's creative energy and professional edge? She glanced around her studio, noting the vibrant paint splatters and unfinished projects. Each piece told a story of her journey, a testament to her struggle and growth. In this sanctuary of creation, she reminded herself that art was never solely about perfection. It was about process, emotional release, and connection. Determined to revisit her workshop plan with fresh eyes, Sarah kicked into high gear. She spent the next few days drafting outlines, jotting down ideas about emotional exploration, creative expression, and the importance of a supportive community, though she refrained from using that term. Each new section filled her with a sense of purpose, transforming the nagging doubts into burgeoning excitement. Still, beneath her renewed drive lay an undercurrent of fear. Questions loomed. What would happen if Laura's vision diverged from hers? Would Sarah lose the essence of her idea by trying to please? Deep down, she grappled with the painful revelation that her expectations could trap her creativity more than achieve it. That night, as the moon illuminated her studio with a silvery glow, Sarah picked up her paintbrush and began her most personal work yet, a self-portrait. With each stroke, she faced herself, peeling back the layers of insecurity and fear that had weighed her down for too long. This painting was a means of confrontation, a pledge to embrace her truth and, perhaps, to uncover her hidden strengths. As the last light faded, Sarah stepped back to observe her creation. It encapsulated the conflict within, beauty intertwined with uncertainty, potential clashing with fear. She had captured something raw and vulnerable, her true self, reminding her that art was, indeed, about heart and authenticity. But as she prepared to send her workshop proposal to Laura, doubt flickered at the edge of her resolve. Was she truly ready for this leap? Her heart pounded again as she asked herself where her collaboration with Laura could lead. What if their combined vision illuminated new paths she hadn't anticipated? With one final look at her self-portrait, Sarah pressed send on the email. The decision was made. She would face her fears, step into the light, and let her authentic self shine in this new partnership. And somewhere in her restless thoughts brewed another deeper question. What if embracing vulnerability became my greatest strength? The following days were a whirlwind of anticipation, and Sarah fought against the tightening knot of doubt that threatened to unravel her newfound confidence. Laura's acknowledgement reignited a spark within her, but with each passing moment of silence, her excitement was muddled by anxiety. What if Laura regretted her enthusiasm? What if their initial synergy faded once they met in person? Setting aside those troubling thoughts, Sarah turned her focus inward. She realized that creating the proposal wasn't just about showcasing an idea. It was an invitation to share her evolving narrative, one she had long kept locked away. With each additional hour spent refining her outline, she acknowledged that the essence of the workshop would require her to share her personal journey, and that unnerved her. Was she ready to bare her soul amidst a room of strangers? To see those vulnerable pieces reflected in others? Again, the fears rose like dark clouds. What if participants ridiculed her pain instead of empathizing with it? On the day of their scheduled meeting, the mixture of excitement and apprehension brewed into something electric. Clad in an outfit that felt like a carefully curated shell rather than an authentic extension of herself, Sarah entered the cafe where they had agreed to meet. The buzzing environment, filled with snippets of laughter and the aromas of freshly brewed coffee, offered a stark contrast to the turmoil she felt brewing within. As she sat at their table, fiddling with a napkin, Sarah replayed their conversation in her mind. Laura arrived punctually, her energy palpable, exuding a warmth that instantly dispelled Sarah's self-consciousness. They exchanged pleasantries, And as Laura shared her vision for the workshops, Sarah felt herself drawn in, inspired by her partner's passion. Laura brought up a point that struck a chord: people are drawn to authenticity. It creates a space for connection. As the words settled in, Sarah contemplated the truth in them. This workshop wasn't merely about teaching art. It was about fostering an emotional journey based on shared experiences. Suddenly, the weight of her fears felt lighter as she thought about how her story could encourage others to explore their own emotional landscapes. The discussion flowed seamlessly, and just as they began outlining practical steps to integrate their visions, a significant thought crossed Sarah's mind: perhaps she should confront her vulnerabilities openly in the workshop. Would that authenticity not invite others to share their truths as well? But as that revelation washed over her, an internal tension pulled at her. What if sharing her scars instead left her exposed and raw? It was a risk, one that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As they wrapped up the session, Laura leaned in, her expression earnest. I think the key is mutual support. If we both bring our stories to the table, we establish a trust that makes the creativity flourish. Sarah nodded, sensing the potential in their collaborative approach. Driving home afterward, epiphanies surged through Sarah's mind, fueling her thoughts. Reflecting on Laura's words stirred the notion that addressing her vulnerabilities might very well become an integral part of the workshop. Yet the specter of self-doubt lingered, whispering that revealing too much could deter rather than galvanize. As she reached her studio, Sarah felt the dichotomy of her thoughts collide. In one vein, the prospect of being open felt like fire, igniting her courage. In another, the paralyzing fear of judgment stifled her spirit. Would embracing her vulnerability serve as a catalyst for growth, or would it strip her of the protective layers she had constructed over the years? Standing before her easel, the day's revelations bubbling in her gut, Sarah picked up a brush, hesitating before making the first stroke. Her mind raced with the possibility of exploration that lay ahead. Suddenly, amidst the tangle of emotions, one question rose above all others: would choosing vulnerability truly empower me, or would it unravel everything I had built? As she stood there, contemplating her next move, the decision she faced began to crystallize. It was time she took the plunge. But with that resolve simmering just beneath the surface, one thought echoed through her mind, a haunting reminder of the challenge ahead. What if laying bare my soul unlocked the strength I've been longing to discover? Weeks passed, and each day brought a renewed sense of purpose for Sarah as she navigated the intricate dance of her newly formed collaboration with Laura. The workshops they were building were no longer just a distant dream. They had transformed into a solid structure of intention and creativity. A structure that allowed her insecurities to coexist with her burgeoning confidence, making her feel alive in ways she had never imagined. As they drew closer to their launch date, a combination of excitement and trepidation stitched itself into Sarah's being. The sight of their marketing materials reflected her vision. They both put in every ounce of energy, crafting a narrative of resilience that resonated deeply within her. Every post they shared and event they planned felt like a testament to their commitment to authenticity, a refusal to pander to superficiality. In the weeks leading up to the first workshop, Sarah's mind often circled back to the transformative concept of vulnerability and its power, not just for her, but for those who would step into the space they were creating. It became essential to her mission that she did not simply inhabit the role of an instructor. Rather, she needed to present herself as a willing participant in their collective journey. In preparation, she revisited her own past, and with each memory, she felt both the weight of her history and the burning need to share it. Those were not just remnants of pain, they were the wellspring from which her strength and creativity flowed. She spent late nights poring over her art, revisiting old sketches, placing herself back in those vulnerable moments, fiercely committed to transforming every brushstroke into an invitation for others to tell their stories. The day of the first workshop felt electric. The sun streamed in through the windows of the community center, flooding the room with warmth. Sarah looked over at Laura, whose smile reflected the thrill of shared dreams. Together, they had curated an atmosphere filled with colors and artistic chaos, a haven for self-exploration. As participants trickled in, Sarah's heart raced. Today, she announced, her voice steady yet thumping with the rhythm of nerves and hope, we'll create art that tells our stories. But more importantly, we will share them with each other. Your vulnerability is your power. As she looked around, she saw faces contorted with apprehension, curiosity, and the flicker of hope. It struck her then this was not merely a workshop, it was a revolution. A space where hesitance would dissolve in the presence of acceptance. As participants began to create, Sarah gently wove her narrative into the fabric of the room. She shared her own journey, unveiling pieces of herself that had always felt too exposed for public consumption. Looking out at her audience, she felt the incredible alchemy of vulnerability transform fear into strength. By allowing herself to bare her soul, she created ripples of connection that demanded to be acknowledged. As stories unfolded, the room buzzed with lively conversations, laughter, and occasional tears. They were opening up, and Sarah felt every layer of her reluctance dissolve. The workshop concluded with participants sharing their work, and what unspooled was a tide of resilience. Others expressed their adversities, reaffirming that in sharing their struggles, they had defeated isolation. That first session became a poignant testimony to collective healing, but also to Sarah's evolution as a leader. She walked out that day not just as a facilitator, but as a beacon of authenticity, who had found her voice. Weeks later, as she reflected on their journey, Sarah received an email. It was a message from Laura, summarizing the success of their first session. The workshop had exceeded their expectations, garnering interest in more sessions, and participants were eager for another round. The joy electrified her veins. Now, with every workshop that followed, she felt the weight lift and the boundaries of her past shatter. She was evolving into a leader recognized for her transformative impact. Those moments of self-doubt retreated further into her rearview mirror, overshadowed by the confidence she had earned. It was undeniable. Sarah had conquered isolation, proving that she was indeed enough. With newfound clarity, she envisioned expanding the program, integrating more diverse artistic mediums that resonated with the community's unique voices. This initiative would not just enhance her local impact, it was a pathway to professional validation, elevating her stature in the art world. In that moment, Sarah comprehended her growth. She was no longer just surviving, she was thriving, carving out a niche that intertwined her personal history with the community's collective voice. She had achieved a formidable position, not just uplifted from life's challenges but firmly in control of her narrative. Her journey was far from over. Instead, it was the beginning of a vibrant chapter. The satisfaction of seeing others thrive propelled her further into the future. She had transformed pain into purpose, found vitality amidst vulnerability, and most importantly, rebuilt the connection to her daughter in ways that would last a lifetime. As she watched her daughter, Lily, developing her passion for art right alongside her, she felt a surge of pride both for Lily's blossoming strength and her own perseverance. Together, they had cultivated resilience, and together they would continue to illuminate lives. In a moment of reflection, Sarah felt the undeniable significance of community, a tapestry woven from interlaced journeys that could never be undone. This was her triumph, and she was ready for what lay ahead, powerful, grounded, and immensely proud. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment their reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.